What happens when everything you believed about healing turns upside down? Today's guest was a nurse who once believed the body only healed with medicine, but when her own health battles and inner struggles forced her to look deeper, she discovered something powerful. Our bodies can heal themselves. Her journey took her from depression and conflict to award-winning entrepreneur, best-selling author, and globally recognized podcaster. This is her story. Sarah Dawkins is a former nurse turned natural healing advocate, award winning entrepreneur, and author of Heal Yourself. She has healed multiple health conditions in herself and guided others to do the same. Conditions doctors said couldn't be reversed. She now runs SD Essential Health, hosts her own podcast, and helps people reclaim their power to heal naturally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Sarah, welcome to Attention to Currency. So great to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Daniel. It's great to be here.
And, we're excited to hear more, and I know that the viewers, well, the listeners and the viewers are looking forward to hearing about your story, and because these things are very common things in the health system, and everyone's looking for alternatives and want to be the best that they can be in this world.
They
So,
are indeed, yes.
so we've got the perfect guest on for that talk. And Sarah, you spent years in the medical field. What was the turning point that made you question everything you'd been taught about healing?
It was actually when a nurse colleague questioned me about my use of pharmaceuticals at home because my mum was a nurse and I was raised in that medical model. So that was all I knew. When you're sick, you take a pill or you go to a doctor and you get a diagnosis and you take whatever the doctor prescribes you. And that was my view of healing for 41 years. And then I was challenged at work. Like I was taken aback. Why would you say that? Because this is what we do. This is what health is all about. But I went home and started doing some research, which led me on to more research, which actually prompted the start of my own healing journey. So it was quite incredible that I had that open mind to be able to go away and think, well, why would she say that? Rather than, well, she's wrong and this is the right way.
Well, I know that a lot of people in the medical field they're quite attached because you spend a lot of time learning those things and to sort of reverse back and unlearn some things and keep the things that are essential, it would have been very challenging because I know the doctors and nurses they're all about what the treatment that they're offering, and that's no doubt what they told you for many years in university. This is how it's done.
Yeah, and actually, we only had, I think it was 2 lectures on nutrition in 3-year nursing studies, and I think the doctors only get a couple of days in all of their training. So it really was unlearning everything I'd learned about what health was, because I was raised in that model as well. So it wasn't that it was a new paradigm for me. That was my whole life. So that really rocked me. But actually, every time I found more and more research about what our bodies are capable of, that really opened my mind further. It kind of blew my mind, really. Like, wow, this is really possible. And that's how I started changing my diet, my lifestyle, made a few tweaks here and there. And within the first month, I'd healed psoriasis, acid reflux, and eczema, which are, psoriasis and eczema classed as autoimmune. Doctors say we can't heal autoimmune, we just have to manage the symptoms.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
trick to healing is to understand what causes the symptoms. And when you step back into those behaviors and thoughts, as I have done occasionally, I get a resurgence of either eczema or psoriasis. So I'm like, okay, my body's telling me that I've stepped back into those habits and I need to come back and make those changes again.
100%. Well, I get psoriasis as well, so we're and I understand exactly on that, and I know that the flare-ups that happen, and I guess when you step back, you do see what triggers it. Yeah, it's but a lot of people because I've met people through because we've both done a lot of research in that area. And you see people that just live with it and they've got it everywhere, and they
Yes,
just
yeah.
don't. So it's really valuable information to put it out there. I sort of I mostly am clear of it, but my I don't really I sort of understand it a bit, but there needs to be more knowledge out there of
There does.
for those people because I remember years ago I was doing a bit of a casual job on a construction site. And one guy that was working on the site, I could see he had the nails going and everything, and it was all up his arms and over him. And I said to him, that's psoriasis, isn't it?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, it is." And I said to him, "You've got to stop drinking alcohol and doing all the things that inflame it." And he just was so resistant to all of that because they've got to change. Like, he's got to change his lifestyle, essentially.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, it's easy to not change anything and just use a pill or a cream or a treatment from a doctor and carry on.
Oh,
And that was the mindset I was in for 41 years. I don't need to change anything. I'll just get some cream from the psoriasis. I'll get some medicine for the acid reflux and then, all the other things I had going on. I'm like, this is what healing is. It's just take a pill and change nothing. But it comes back down to responsibility for self. And our body's always healing. I mean, has anybody ever questioned, will they heal when they've bruised themselves? Or will they heal when they cut themselves, like a paper cut or a nick in the kitchen? And we don't tend to because we know our body will heal those.
yeah.
So if we extrapolate that out, if it'll heal those little things, why is it not possible for us to heal the bigger things?
100%. And that's why we're so conditioned in this world to not believe. And that's where your book coming out and the message that you're spreading to the world is so much more essential than ever. And people are waking up to these things because it just makes so much more rational sense. But you've just got to push through that irrationalness of the conditioning ultimately. And where's my next? We've answered some of my questions on here, so I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. What do you think so many people struggle to believe the body can heal itself?
Because we're conditioned.
Yes.
We are fed this conditioning through school, from parents, and in work, and we see it on the television, and it further reiterates that when we're sick, we need a doctor and a pill. And we lived in America for a couple of years, and pills are advertised on the TV, and then right at the end of the advert, they list some of the side effects so rapidly that you can barely hear them. But but that conditioning runs really deep, and we just automatically believe it becomes a core belief, and our core beliefs run us through our subconscious on autopilot. So for a lot of people, myself included, I didn't understand my belief around health and healing was tied to doctors and hospitals and nurses until I was challenged. And then it was like, so why do I believe that? Why would she say that? What is going on here? And that's what led me to my research. And it's when we're challenged, a lot of us, it's easy to get triggered, like, wow, you're so wrong. But actually, if we can look inside ourselves, like, why are we triggered? What is it underneath that trigger that is causing this reaction? And there's often a belief and an emotion tied to that belief. And that's why we're triggered. So if we can dig into that, why am I triggered? What is really going on here? What is the belief under that? And where has that belief come from? Because most of our beliefs are formed up to the age of 7 from our caregivers and school. And we hold those unconsciously until we become conscious of them.
Definitely. And I always like the saying around this health is where because I've battled my health journey and that I've had a few other things, and I always like the saying nothing tastes better than good health. Because and I think well, really by your book and everything, it's reworking those frameworks and those conditions in there. You personally healed health conditions that many would call incurable. Can you share an example of some of those ones?
Yeah, like the eczema and psoriasis, classed as autoimmune, and yes, they do come back. I consider that I've healed them until I step back into a stress state, And then I get the tiny little rashes, not big ones like I used to get, a tiny bit of an itch and a rash coming back. And that's my signal actually to look at what's going on in my life and what my thoughts are. So I don't have a massive eruption anymore. But I had underactive thyroid. I burned out my adrenal glands through stress. I had PTSD, which I've healed. I had bulimia nervosa. I've had depression a couple of times. And then when I was so conflicted around changing who I was into who I was becoming, as in stepping out of I need pills to I can heal myself, that whole conflict, because I was living two lives, one at home naturally and then one at work with doctors and medicines and investigations and treatments. So that spiraled me into that dark depression. And that's when my thyroid stopped working and burned out my adrenal glands. And the doctor wanted to medicate me. And I'd done that previously. I'm like, no, I really don't want that because it made me a zombie. So I didn't take the medication and I had suicidal thoughts at the time. And I had no idea how I was going to heal that because in that depressed state, our frontal lobe, our thinking lobe literally shuts down and it's like wading through a treacle, so I was trying to find out what I could do, but I wasn't retaining the information. I couldn't process the information logically and rationally. I was in a really bad state. And it turns out that over time, because we had dogs, I had to walk them because I was off work. My husband and children were at school. And the fact that I was outside walking the dogs twice a day, every day, looking back, I was several months, if not a year down the line, I realized at some point I'd started practicing gratitude and mindfulness. Didn't know what I was doing at the time. But suddenly one day I just, instead of looking down at the footpath, I looked up and there was buds on the trees. It was spring and there was a little river running down the side of the path I used to walk. And suddenly all of this came into my awareness, like my senses came back online, if you like. So I started looking for the flowers, the trees, listening to the wind and the little stream, listening for children laughing, and just being in those moments, really taking them in. And that, I think, was the first step out of that, well, not out of that deep, dark abyss that I was in, but it was like I was climbing up my own way because I didn't know about coaches at the time. So I was doing it all myself, away from the doctor who just wanted to keep throwing pills at me. And so I started practicing the gratitude mindfulness. That really helped me to start feeling a bit better and see some light. And then I was able to start meditating. I tried the sitting on, never done meditating before, tried the sitting on the floor with the and my mind just went off. And I'm like, oh, I really can't do this. There's such a lot of negative mind chatter. So I started listening to guided meditations and they really helped. I mean, at first it was like 5 minutes because that's all I could do. But it was just finding that inner peace. And then I went on and started meditating about being an entrepreneur and then an award-winning entrepreneur and then looking at, how I could change my path in the future. So sorry, I went a bit off tangent, but
That's all
all of
good.
those
No,
conditions.
it's really great stuff because it reflects. I always love the stories that have the incremental changes, because most people think that, and that's why it goes well into everything that you do, because most people go to the doctor expecting a quick fix. Everyone wants a quick fix these days, but the real fixes they take steps, and if people want that best life, they need to take the steps. And dogs are the first coaches. They
Oh,
really
yes.
are.
Well, animals, they're just unconditional love.
Yeah, because I know they sense a lot. Well, I know my dog. If I'm having a really rough day, he'll be going, "Arr, arr, 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 time to go for a walk."
Yeah, yeah.
So it's no, they're definitely, yeah. But I think it's really important to see those sides of the journey in that, and that's why we love doing the podcast, because we get to tell those stories. that reflect, because most people listening that are going through those similar things might think that they're looking for that quick fix, and then the quick fix isn't working for them, and it could be even causing them more damage than before. But we're gonna move to your book at the moment, and your book includes not only your story but also the journey of 74 others. What made you want to include those voices into the book?
Oh, that was a journey in itself. So as I started feeling better, I thought the world needs to hear about this because obviously it was new to me. I would in that medical model, and suddenly now I've stepped away and all this new world's opened up. So I thought there must be other people out there. So I started writing just my own journey. And at the end of it, I think I've got about 10,000 words. My mind chatter went, "Who do you think you are? You're not an author. You're never going to be anything." So I put it away on my computer, and it stayed there for 5 years. And 5 years later, I just woke up one day thinking, I've got to finish my book, and it's got to have other people. So it was an inspirational moment on waking up. So I reached out on the internet, on social media. Lots of people came back wanting to share their healing. And I looked at what people had healed and what people hadn't healed, and then went trawling the internet looking for other health conditions to include that I hadn't already got. And I had more than I thought, wow, it'd be great if, 10 or 20 people came back to me. And then they did. And I'm like, wow, dare I even think that 50 might be a good number? And then it did. I'm like, oh my gosh, can I push it to 75? And I did have 75, but one of them just couldn't meet my deadline to be in by a certain date for I was entering a Hay House competition. That's what suddenly brought a deadline. And so it was just 74 people. But wow, what beautiful, amazing souls sharing their whole healing and their lives and their symptoms and what they did and how they did it outside of medicine. To just like myself, to want to share with the world that healing happens. So, just the fact that 74 people came back to me blew my mind, because I was thinking little and then incrementally increasing it, getting my hopes up. And I would have never have dreamed so many people would have wanted to share. And of course, it opened my world, my new world further, because then I met all these beautiful souls.
Yeah. Well, you moved on to a different frequency on that is really the and it's amazing one thing, because when the body's feeling good, everything else opens up. It's so true. It's just, were there any stories that completely shifted your perspective from those individuals?
Yes, yes. People who've healed ALS, or we call it motor neurone, the Americans call it Lou Gehrig. It's all the same disease. I knew from what I'd healed and reading stories of other problems, but to go way out to ALS, motor neurone, and as I'm reading how they've healed, because two people healed it totally separately and totally differently, it really reinforced into me that actually it's the belief we have in ourselves about our own healing abilities. And they both said, we anybody that said we couldn't heal, we put them at a distance. We didn't want them in our world while we were healing, because we didn't want that negativity. And a couple of other people have said that, healing other things. But autoimmune, even rolling out to multiple sclerosis. I've had a gentleman healed stroke, ladies healed endometriosis, so many different autoimmune conditions, cancer, Lyme. We're told we can't heal these, and if people show up to the doctors and say I've healed, the doctor goes, "You're an anomaly."
Yeah.
In air quotes, it's not the norm. And I'm thinking, well, why would it not be the norm? Because our body knows how to heal. We just have to stop doing what made us sick and start doing what we think will make us well. And I've defined 4 pillars of health and healing. Do you want me to share them with
Oh
you?
yes, of course. I think it's very valuable.
Thank you. And it was only after my own healing and writing my book that I defined these pillars for not just to keep us healthy, but also to be used in healing. And they are the physical pillar, which most people, and that was the only pillar I went to initially, which is like nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise. That's where I started because as a nurse, that's all I knew. So we need to address all of those within the physical pillar. There's the mental pillar, as in look after our brain. So that's the gratitude, the mindfulness, the meditation. But we also need to stimulate our brain. So do crosswords, learn a language, do puzzles, something to stimulate it, read. There's the spiritual, which is I found coming when I was doing the meditation, which literally means come back inside yourself and find that little voice that's always been there, but we've disconnected from. It doesn't have to mean religion. It doesn't have to mean spirituality, but it can if that is, pertinent to you. So come back to that spiritual aspect, that little voice, and start listening to it. Your ego shouts, but that little voice is fairly quiet and there's no emotion behind it. It's matter of fact. And the last pillar I didn't find until I started coaching, and I didn't even know that I didn't know it was there. And that's the emotional pillar. And that really is about dealing with your past. You've got to be able to heal all of that past. If we can forgive it, to be able to let it go, that's great. But a lot of people are not able to forgive what's happened. So if we can come to a place of acknowledge what's happened and accept it, because nothing we can do in the present will ever change what's happened in the past. So if we can come to that place of acceptance, if we can't reach that forgiveness, so that we can have no emotional response when we think about what's happened, that's all part of healing.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, it's all the areas that when somebody goes to the doctor and it says that they got depression or the beginning of an illness, they should be handed your book to
They
start that.
should, shouldn't they?
Yes, they should be. And around your book, if somebody picks up Heal Yourself, what do you hope they sort of walk away with? What is the biggest takeaway?
The biggest takeaway I've had from the people who've translated it into different languages for me is that they feel empowered. They said, I'm not sick. I've got nothing to heal, but I feel empowered. And actually, I think I'm going to sell my house because I want that. I've seen a house that I really want to buy, and I'm just going to do that. So, it's great to help you to believe that healing's possible, because all of the people in my book have all healed problems that some of which the doctor said can't heal. But other people, even if you're not healing anything, it's inspirational to read all these beautiful souls pouring their heart out into the book, saying, please don't give up hope. This, I've healed this. The doctor told me it was all in my head, but actually I found out it wasn't. And I trusted myself and believed I could heal and went on and healed it. So just the fact that it's tangible evidence that people have healed.
Definitely. Well, a lot of people don't expect to get sick, and they should pick up the book beforehand. And if you start the practices, you avoid possibly can't guarantee you avoid the sickness, but you've got a better chance if you're looking after yourself, looking after the vessel that we're going through the world in.
Absolutely, yes.
And you built a coaching practice, won awards, and now you run your own podcast. What was the hardest part of stepping away from your nursing identity?
That was another journey, because all my life I only ever wanted to be a nurse to help people when they were vulnerable. And so my identity was Sarah the nurse. And once I'd started stepping away from it, I was really challenging myself. So my first step into entrepreneurship was a nurse entrepreneur. So I was still a registered nurse, but I was no longer in a hospital. I was doing training. I was doing DNA work, medical legal work. So I'd done a sidestep into entrepreneurship still as a nurse, because that's who I was. And I had to do a lot of soul searching to find out, who is Sarah if she's not a nurse? And that really challenged me, because I didn't know who I was, because I'd layered on top of the little me all these personas, if you like, to please people, to fit in, to do what people wanted. And as I started to peel all these back, I found that young me who was just literally a free spirit, very tenacious, rebellious. I walked to the beat of my own drum, didn't like rules, and I was just really like a free spirit. And I've got to try and reconnect with that, my inner younger child, and see what's, well, I know what she went through, but to heal what she went through so that she's no longer frightened. And once I'd done that, I was able to disalign, unalign from being a nurse and just be Sarah. So that's how I stepped into coaching. And once I've trained as a coach, I then surrendered my nursing license because I didn't align with Sarah the coach. I just aligned with Sarah who does coaching and who does podcasting. So, but that was quite a journey to peel all those layers back to find who I was truly, authentically.
100%. Well, I've been an entrepreneur most of my journey, and I can relate with that completely because you become you're expressing yourself more authentically when you're building your own business. And well, once again, the whole career and work is that conditioning that we've gone through. So it's great to inspire others to follow their dreams because from everything that we were talking about, it's more than just healing it's healing the body and the healing the mind, so you can be the most authentic part of yourself essentially, and then you're really going and I guess staying in a role that isn't making you happy and isn't fulfilling you is making you sick as well. So it's
Yeah, and that comes back to core beliefs. What do you believe about yourself?
yeah.
Because we tend to believe what other people tell us. You're no good, you're not worthy, you're the black sheep, is what I heard growing up. So I put all these masks and personas on to try and be liked, loved, wanted. So when I dug into that, I'm like, well, I'm just going to be who I am. This is me. I'm back to being a bit rebellious and a bit wild and unique and quirky and people call me weird, but do you know what? I am myself.
Yeah.
I've got a heart of gold and I love to help people to help themselves because I realized nursing, I wasn't helping them to help themselves. I was helping them to stay in the system.
I feel people call people weird because they're doing things that they want to be doing themselves, and
Yes.
it's easier to out other people than accept inside themselves that they're not on their journey, they're not on their path that they want to be on. And for listeners who feel stuck in an identity or career that no longer fits them, what's your message?
Ask yourself, what do you want to do? What lights you up if you don't know what you want to do? Because I didn't. It was my husband suggested entrepreneurship. But look at lots of different options, and you can always try things on the side, upskill yourself, do some courses online, read some books, talk to other people, find out what really lights up your soul, and make waves to move towards that. I mean, for me, I literally took a leap of faith. I left nursing and set up entrepreneurship, knowing nothing. I had to go to university and take classes into how to become an entrepreneur. Um, but that was a real leap of faith. Not everybody's got the courage to do that. So that's why I say read around, talk to people, and then follow what really lights you up. Because when you're doing things that you really love, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. Well, also, I always notice this that when you're heading in a certain direction, somebody does mention something to you, or because it's like the very start of your journey. A question by a coworker, and that's what sets you on that track. Because when you don't know where the message is going to come from,
No.
is always the part of this life. And what was the first step someone can take today to start their own healing journey?
I would say look at what stresses you, because stress in itself causes inflammation in our body. And inflammation is the root cause of all dis-ease. So if we can see where our stress is and understand that we can only control ourselves, we're only responsible for ourselves. And the vast majority of stress is we're trying to control everything out there. or we're trying to be responsible for other people. And we don't have that ability. So if we can rein that back in and go, what can I control? What am I responsible for? And try and let go of everything else. And I know people go, well, I need to do that and I'm responsible for that. But are you really? Can you control that situation? Is it really your responsibility? And something I learned recently is this is me and that is you. To put distance between ourselves, to understand truly that we can only take that responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, I know that, yeah, well, with the entrepreneurship, we've always followed these things where if you're not building, if you're not working on your own dream, somebody else will drag you along for theirs. And
Yes,
of course, with your add-on, it's misalignment when you're being dragged along on somebody else's path.
absolutely. Yes.
That's, and how can listeners balance medical advice with natural healing approaches without conflict? I think that will be something that's people.
That
Yes.
is incredibly challenging because most people want a diagnosis because they've had symptoms forever and they think they're going mad. So they want to go to the doctors and get a diagnosis, which actually validates their symptoms. And I get that because I used to be like that. We're looking for that validation that I'm not making it all up. I've really got this symptom. At the end of the day, we need to look at what are our symptoms saying, because it's our body, our subconscious mind gives us the symptoms in our body as a message to us. So our symptoms are the messengers. And yes, it's great to go and get a diagnosis to understand what's going on. But when we get a diagnosis, think of that as a program in a computer that is then installed into our brain. So the doctor said I've got MS, or the doctor said I've got autoimmune, or the doctor said I've got whatever. And along with that program comes a set of beliefs. So if I've got this disease, this diagnosis, I'm going to be on this pill, I'm going to never heal, I'm going to end up in a wheelchair or bed bound. And it just extrapolates out, but your subconscious does it. So to balance medical with holistic, and I say holistic because it's mind, body, soul, but it's also mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. To balance the two, always ask your doctor before he's offering pills. Say, is that the only way? Is there anything else I can do for myself? Or even check yourself. Do I need to go to the doctor for a diagnosis? Can I sit with my symptoms and literally just ask your body, sit in a quiet moment and say, what is it I need to hear? And some people might know. They might need to get a divorce. They might need to move house. They might need to change job. They might need to change their children's school. But they're suppressing those because it's going to cause conflict. Whereas when they address those, it will reduce the stress levels, which will reduce the symptoms.
Well, it's
So
that
it's a
yeah.
balancing act.
In that saying, it's people want change, but they don't like to change. Be told they need to change or like to change.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's
So
perfect.
most people will know really what's going on.
Yeah,
They just need to address that.
honesty to themselves.
It is self-responsibility.
And we're moving towards the close at the moment, but there's just one more question because we like to give actionable takeaways. And what daily habits or practices do you believe make the biggest difference long term?
Things that really light up your soul, that really nourish you. I'm a big believer in do a little bit of what will support your health and healing and soul, rather than do a lot of nothing, because it's easy to look at the big picture and go, it's too overwhelming, I'm not going to do anything, and shut down. But if you know what really lights you up, do more of that. So for me, it's walking the dog in the mountains. I live in the mountains in Spain, morning and evening. And that for me, it really lifts my soul. It energizes me. It nourishes my body. So find something that you love doing and do more of it.
That's perfect. And it leads us to our closing question. Sarah, if attention is the currency, what should people stop wasting it on and start investing it in?
I would say stop wasting it on other people and start investing in what are your thoughts, what are your triggers, and where have they come from? Because when we become more self aware and let go of what other people are saying to us about who we should be and how we should be, when we dig into ourselves and become more self aware, we understand where our thoughts are going. Now, we can consciously make our thoughts, but our mind can also throw out random crap. And not every thought is believable. And I want your listeners to understand that, because a lot of things can come back from our childhood. So when my book was pushed away in my computer because that inner voice was going, who do you think you are? You're not an author. You're nobody. You're not worthy. Yes, they were my words in my head, my thoughts, but the words weren't mine. They came from my childhood. And my mind was just repeating those. It was my ego trying to protect me. But I hadn't had a word with it by that time. But it's understand what's going on in your mind and acknowledge the words for what they are. They're either your conscious thoughts or there's somebody else's words coming in to try and stop you. So when we become aware of our thoughts, access our core beliefs, what do we really believe? And then that makes us more self-aware to be able to hold on to that belief or change it like I did, a total 180 degrees, and go from I need a doctor and pills to my body heals myself. But it was a conscious thought process.
That's perfect. Uh, that's perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah Dawkins. Story is proof that healing doesn't just come from pills or prescriptions. It starts with belief, intention, and aligned action. You can connect with Sarah at sarah.dawkins.com, which we'll put in the description so you can all jump onto Sarah's website and connect. Explore her book, Heal Yourself, and tune into her podcast for more powerful stories. Very recommended following Sarah and watching some episodes for stories of transformation. If today's conversation sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because healing isn't just possible, it's already within you. And
It is absolutely. Thank you, Daniel.
we'll see you all in the next episode.